New Upanishad means new opening prayer. Repeat after me, please. Om Bhadram Karnebhi Om Bhadram Karnebhi Shrinuyama Devaha Shrinuyama Devaha Bhadram Pashyemakshabhiryajatraha Bhadram Pashyemakshabhiryajatraha Sthirayangaihi Sthirayangaihi Tushtuvagam Sastanubihi Tushtuvagam Sastanubihi Vyashema Deva Hitayadayu Vyashema Deva Hitayadayu Swasti Nahindro Vriddhashravaha Swasti Nahindro Vriddhashravaha Swasti Navpusha Vishwavedaha Swasti Navpusha Vishwavedaha Swasti Nastarkshyo Arishtanemihi Swasti Nastarkshyo Arishtanemihi Swasti no Brahaspatir Dadhatu Swasti no Brahaspatir Dadhatu. Together. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Very good. I'll explain the meaning of the prayer in just a moment, but we will start at the beginning of our next text. We've chosen to take several short Upanishads in this sequence of classes on Tuesday evening. And having concluded the Isha Upanishad, our next text is the Kaivalya Upanishad. When the words are run together, it becomes Kaivalyopanishad. Just a word about how these texts have been selected. The Isha Upanishad was selected because it's one of the very important Upanishads which have been commented upon by Sri Shankaracharya. Sri Shankara chose of all the Upanishads, 100-some Upanishads, of all the Upanishads, Sri Shankaracharya chose 10 of them to write commentaries upon. And these 10 are then called major Upanishads. So they include Isha, Kena, Kata, Chandogya, Brihadaranyaka, Shweta, Shvatara, Aitreya, Prashna. Some more are there. These are the so-called major Upanishads. Does it necessarily mean the other are minor? That's not exactly the right idea. These are terms that scholars often use. The 10 commented upon by Sri Shankara are called major Upanishads. The others are called minor. But that's only this academic distinction based on which Shankara chose to comment on. The Kaivalya Upanishad is technically a minor Upanishad, but in its content, it's extremely major, very profound. In a way, you will probably find the content of the Kaivalya Upanishad more profound than that of Isha. In fact, Isha Upanishad is not one of my favorite Upanishads. It deals a lot with this Vedic karma. And if you wonder why did Sri Shankaracharya choose it, it turned out that Vedic karma was one of his favorite topics. He loved, not to say he loved, one of his focal points in his teachings was to turn people away from excessive ritualism. So with that in mind, you can perhaps see why Sri Shankara chose Isha as one of the 10 Upanishads he commented upon. He did not choose to comment on Kaivalya Upanishad. If you ask me why, my only reply can be, I don't know. You'll have to ask him. And he's not available to answer us. I don't know why. It's a very beautiful and profound Upanishad. And He could have commented upon it for whatever reason. He did not choose to comment upon this Upanishad. The word Kaivalya is derived from the word Kevala. Kevala means only. Kaivalya is a derived noun. In English, an exact translation would be onlyness, which was not a very nice English word. Onlyness sounds terrible. Kaivalya sounds really good. Sounds good in Sanskrit, sounds terrible in English. And onlyness describes a condition which is moksha. In fact, in Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, Patanjali does not refer to enlightenment as moksha. Patanjali refers to enlightenment as Kaivalya, onlyness. Now, onlyness may give you the sense of being alone or isolated, but that's not at all the meaning here. Onlyness means the only thing that is Atma, which happens to be Brahman. That's the entire teaching. Onlyness, Kaivalya, is referring then to the fact that the consciousness because of which you exist is indeed the truth of everything. Onlyness in that sense. There is only Brahman. Sarvam Kalvidam Brahma. All this indeed is nothing but Brahman. So Kaivalya is actually a very beautiful expression of Advaita, of the non-duality of the reality that exists. So Kaivalya Upanishad is one of the Upanishads drawn from the Atharva Veda. Each Veda has several Upanishads associated with it. So this Kaivalya Upanishad is part of the Atharva Veda. For Upanishads from the Atharva Veda, this is a prayer that's generally recited before study of the Upanishad. It's one of the traditional 10 Shanti Patas, the 10 invocations for Shanti, for peace. This is recited always before study of Kaivalya Upanishad. So let's see the meaning of it. We just chanted it, and we'll be chanting this before each class, but we'd like to see the meaning a little bit more clearly. First line, Bhadram Karnebihi Shrunuyama Devaha. Devaha, O gods, Shrunuyama, may we hear, Shrunuyama, may we hear what is Bhadram, what is blessed, what is auspicious, Karnebihi, with our ears. May we hear what is blessed with our ears. Bhadram Pashyema, and Pashyema, may we see what is Bhadram, what is blessed, what is auspicious. Akshabihi, with our eyes. May we hear what is blessed with our ears. May we see what is blessed with our eyes. Yajatraha, as we worship, us, the worshippers, may we see what is auspicious with our eyes. Swasti naha tarkshaha arashtanemihi. Oops. That's not next. There we go. Oh, I should mention that these slides are available on our website. Same slides we're using here, which includes my translation. You can get a copy on the website. So I see many of you have. And then you can take notes on these. Might be helpful. The next verse. Sthiraihi angaihi tushtu vamsaha tanubihi. I'm breaking the words apart for you, first of all. Tushtu vamsaha, us who are pleased, who are contented. Contented, why? Because we are tanubihi, we are blessed with bodies, tanubihi, with bodies, with sthiraihi angaihi, with sthira anga, with firm limbs, strong limbs. Notice it's a reference to many of our senses. First, it's talking about may our ears be ready to hear all that is blessed. May our eyes be ready to see what is blessed. May our, loosely speaking, we could say, let our limbs be be strong, our bodies be strong for the sake of worship. Vyashema, may we possess steady limbs and a strong body for the sake of worship, and may that body be deva hitam, may that body be literally beneficial to the gods. Literally, deva hitam is that which is beneficial to the gods, and it means engaged in worship. May our bodies be engaged in worship. Somebody would ask, a child would ask, how much do we have to worship? How long? And it says here very nicely, yat ayuhu, as long as you live. Yat ayuhu, for whatever lifespan you have, may our bodies be strong and ready and engaged in worship. Then the second half of the prayer, somehow we hear the second half recited a lot by North Indian priests. It was one of their favorite prayers to recite. Swasti naha indraha vridha shravaha. Again, I'm breaking the words apart for you. Swasti naha. Swasti, auspiciousness. Swasti naha, for us. Naha means for us. May there be auspiciousness for us. From whom? Indra. May Indra, king of the gods, who is vridha shravaha, whose fame is unexcelled. May that Indra, whose fame is unexcelled, swastinaha, may he bless us with swasti, with auspiciousness. The second line, swastinaha, once again, may there be blessings for us, naha, for us. From who? Pusha. Pushan is the undeclined form. And literally it means the one who nourishes is Pushan. But in the mythological sense, it's referring to Surya, God as sun. So may God as sun, Pusha, who is Vishwa Vedaha, who is the knower of everything, who is omniscient. May that God, as in the form of the all-knowing sun, the nourishing sun, Swastinaha, may he bless us with auspiciousness. And the last part of the prayer, Swastinaha, same pattern. May there be blessings, naha, for us. From whom? Tarakshaha. Tarakshaha is a very obscure word. It's usually translated, however, as Garuda. Lord Vishnu's Vahana, vehicle. I suppose it means some god that goes very fast, usually associated with Garuda, who is Arishta Nemihi. Arishta, enemies. So the one who destroys or removes our enemies, that Tarakshaha, that Garuda, Swastinaha, may he bless us with all that is auspicious. And finally, Swasti Naha, blessings unto us, from whom? Brahaspatihi. Brahaspati is understood in mythology as the guru of the gods. So in Swargaloka, you should have a guru. If you have a guru in Rishikesh and Hardware and Franklin Township, there should be a guru in Swargaloka, and that guru's name is Brahaspati. So Brahaspati Dadatu, may he give. May he give swasti, blessings, naha, unto us. And the prayer ends, Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. We'll be reciting this prayer then with each class. Now, anything else? I think we are. Now, this Upanishad is a more typical Upanishad, unlike the Isha. Do you remember one thing that made the Isha Upanishad unique among Upanishads? We called it Samhita Upanishad. It occurred in the prayer section, the hymn section of the Veda. Therefore, it's associated with Vedic swaras. And we actually chanted that Upanishad, Isha Upanishad, with those Vedic swaras. However, most Upanishads, almost all Upanishads, do not have Vedic swaras. So which means we can chant the Upanishad and basically in any reasonable manner, we're free to do that. So we will start at the beginning and chant without Vedic swaras, but with some kind of swara. So we'll start with the first mantra. It's, I think, some 23, 24 mantras total. 24. So this is the first of 24. Repeat after me. Om Hatashvalayano Bhagavantam. Om Hatashvalayano Bhagavantam. Parameshtinam. Parameshtinam. Upasametyo vacha. Upasametyo vacha. Adhihi Bhagavan, Adhihi Bhagavan, Brahma Vidyam Varishtham, Brahma Vidyam Varishtham, Sada Sadbihi, Sada Sadbihi, Sevyamanam Nigudham, Sevyamanam Nigudham. Good. Begins with a story, and we all like a story. And it's a common theme, not just, it's a common theme in Upanishads and elsewhere, to find these brilliant teachings of Vedanta in the context of some kind of simple story, a discussion between sages, etc. Here we have a story in which Ashvalayanaha, actually, before we get the story, we have a very interesting word right at the beginning. Om Ata. Those two words together comprise a famous invocation. Om Ata. Om Ata is considered the most auspicious way to start anything. Starting Om, of course, is fine. Starting with a prayer to Ganesha is fine, but the most traditional way to begin any sacred venture is not merely with Om, but Om Ata. Now, Ata literally means now, but it occurs at the beginning of so many scriptures. It has taken a much broader meaning than now. You can just imagine that in ancient culture, so many scriptures began Om Ata, and whenever you heard Om Ata, you think, oh, wonderful, something good is about to begin. I give a funny metaphor for that. In South India, South Indian temples, you hear in the Prakaram, you hear this Nadaswaram and tabla. You hear the horns and the drums and all. It's noisy. It's really noisy. In fact, the first time I was in South India and heard all of this, I wondered, how can anyone pray or meditate with all this noise going on? It struck me as extraordinarily raucous. And the Nadaswaram is it has this really sharp, piercing nasal quality. A Shanghai on steroids. Really? The first time I heard it, it drove me nuts. I love it now, but having heard it. But here's the idea. Those of you who grew up in South India, you heard this so many times before a wedding, before a procession of the deity. You heard this again and again and again. That raucous, pardon me for calling it raucous sound, that's what it seemed to me then. That raucous sound came to be associated in your mind with something very sacred, something very special. Just like Om Ata gets associated with something very sacred, very special. So many texts and scriptures begin Om Ata, so these words take on this extra importance. Then Ata takes on even further importance. You think we could start the story, but we have to get past this first word, which has two main purposes. One is to indicate auspiciousness, but there's another meaning. Of course, actually three meanings. One is in context of the story, Ata, now, meaning now the story begins. But there's another idea for this Ata, now. now means having reached the present moment. Having reached the present moment means having completed that which came before. And for this rather obscure, I'm being a little grammatical on you, leading up to something, and that is the word ata is used especially in technical scriptures like Brahma Sutra and Mimamsa Sutra. The word ata is used to denote the student's preparedness for the study that's about to begin. The idea is ata, now. Now that you have the necessary preparation to study this particular text. If you don't have the necessary preparation, you shouldn't be listening to this text. The idea is like in college, unless you have fulfilled the prerequisites for a course, you're not ready for the next course. In the same way, unless you have the prerequisites for the study of Upanishad, you shouldn't be studying this Upanishad. And the word atta conveys all of that very important sense. Having atta, now, having acquired the necessary state of preparedness for this study. The necessary state of preparedness in Vedanta is usually called adhikaritvam. Adhikaritvam, the state of being adhikari, qualified in this context. The state of being a qualified student. And then, who is a qualified student? And Sri Shankaracharya in several places, and others also go through and create a long list of requirements, a shopping list. Almost like in a college catalog. You get some of the courses, especially if they're, like 400 series. I remember some of this 400 series courses. There won't be one prerequisite. There'll be a list of prerequisites for some of these advanced courses. So, if you were to consult some of the works of Sri Shankara, his list of prerequisites, viveka, vairagya, shamadamadi, shatka sampattihi, and mumukshutvam. And that's the short version. The long version, viveka, vairagya, shama, dhamma, uparati, titiksha, shraddha, samadhanam, and mumukshutvam. Reads like a shopping list. These are the prerequisites. Now, you have the prerequisites. I don't think there's any issue. Better to say that to the extent we are prepared, to that extent these teachings go in immediately. Watch this. To the extent we are prepared, to that extent these teachings go in immediately. To the extent we lack some preparation, the teachings go in more slowly. They still get in eventually, but not immediately. The idea is if someone is fully and absolutely prepared, someone we call an uttama adhikari, for such a person, it's said, believe it or not, it's said for such a person, all they need to do is hear Tattvamasi once, and they're enlightened. I've never met such a person. I'm certainly not such a person. But such would be the nature of an uttama adhikari, the one who has the highest level of preparedness. But then most of us fall in the other categories, madhya adhikari and manda adhikari, which means to some extent we have the preparedness, these qualities, and to some extent we don't. And what happens is, to the extent that we don't, we make it up as we go along. It's almost as though you enrolled for a course for which you didn't fulfill all the prerequisites, but at the same time you did some tutoring on the side, or to learn to cover those prerequisites that you didn't have in advance. You did that work on the side along with your study of the main program. So that long list, and with your permission, I don't want to go through it because it's actually a very elemental elementary Vedantic topic, but just in general, the prerequisites as given by Shankara, there are four main prerequisites. The first one being viveka, the ability to discriminate between what is real, what is unreal. Next comes vairagya, the dispassion towards all that is unreal, towards that which will not lead you to the highest truth. Then comes a set of 6 qualities. And these 6 qualities include shama, internal quietude, dhamma, self-control, uparati is non-attachment, titiksha, forbearance, shraddha. And I'm going quickly through this because I don't consider it essential for this particular text. Shraddha, faith, and samadhana, meditation. These are the ones given by Shankara, so that these 6 form the third and the final one, mumukshutvam, desire for liberation. There are other ways of formulating those requirements. Most Vedantins, most Advaita Vedantins will cling to Sri Shankara's definition very closely. I don't see it as being a magical formula, but the bottom line is, for these teachings to go in, there are a lot of prerequisites. And I'm not talking about merely intellectual prerequisites. I mean, some prerequisites are pretty obvious. We're using English and Sanskrit. We better understand the English and Sanskrit words that we're using. Some amount of reasoning is used, so we better be capable of that reasoning. But these are the very simple, superficial prerequisites. There are other prerequisites. In fact, we're going to see some of those prerequisites in the text itself. The text itself is going to unfold four in the first couple of verses. It's going to talk about the necessity for shraddha, faith, bhakti, devotion, dhyana, meditation, and tyaga, renunciation. Hey, we talked about that in the last text, tyaga. So we're going to see the emphasis in the opening passages of the text on these particular qualities. So it's nice to see that Shankara's formulation, which I recited very quickly for you, I think many of you have heard that anyway, but Shankara's formulation is not the only possible formulation of what's required for adhikaritvam. In this text, we're going to see a different formulation, certain traits and understanding necessary for these teachings to penetrate. So the word atta then has all of these meanings. One meaning is it's an auspicious beginning for our text, Om Atta. Another meaning is atta, now that you have the necessary preparedness and qualifications for the study. Atta can also mean now in the sense of once upon a time. Now our story begins. All right. And in every story there are characters. And the first character we see is named Ashvalayana. Ashvalayana is one of the rishis mentioned in the Rig Veda. Either he's mentioned or his father Ashvala is mentioned. I'm not sure which. So Ashvalayana is a rishi who's mentioned in the Rig Veda. And what does he do? Upasametya, in the middle of the second line. Upasametya. He approaches Bhagavantam Parameshtinam. He approaches Bhagavantam, the Blessed One. Who is the Blessed One? Parameshtinam, the greatest one. The Blessed One, the greatest one. Well, which is that? And fortunately, there are several commentaries on this text which all say the Parameshti is a word that's often used for Brahmaji. Notice Brahmaji is quite different from Brahman. So it's tricky because it's actually the same word. The undeclined form is Brahman. That's the undeclined form. When you decline it as a masculine noun, it becomes Brahma. So Brahma then refers to Brahmaji, God as creator. If you decline it as a neuter noun, it becomes Brahma. The word is Brahman in the undeclined form, but when it's declined neuter, the word becomes a Brahma. So that Brahma is a reality because of which everything exists. But here, Param Eshtinam is Brahma, Brahmaji, the creator of the world. So our story opens, Ashvalayana, this ancient sage mentioned in the Rig Veda, Upasametya, he approaches Bhagavantam Parameshtinam, he approaches Brahmaji, the Blessed One. Upasametya, having approached Brahmaji, Uvacha, he said. So what did Ashvalayana say to Brahmaji? Adhihi Bhagavan. Bhagavan, O Lord, Adhihi, please teach. Please teach me. Please teach me what? Now, this is significant. For a teacher to teach, the first step is the student has to ask. If the student doesn't ask, the teacher isn't supposed to say a word. Now that sounds very strange in modern times. If the student doesn't ask, the teacher shouldn't teach. Why is that so? If the student doesn't ask and the teacher teaches, we have a word for that in modern times. It's called proselytization. It's when that fellow shows up on your doorstep with a black book wearing a coat and tie, and you don't ask him to teach you anything. He just starts. Have you accepted Jesus as your Lord and Savior? And he goes on and on and on. You didn't ask him to tell you all of that. He just launches in without your request. So, Vedanta is not part of any missionary program. Even the whole Hindu tradition doesn't really have a missionary program, unlike other religious traditions. So there's no, in the Hindu worldview, there's no necessity to convert anyone. And in a Vedantic worldview, there's no necessity for the teacher to impart Brahma Vidya to the student. There's no necessity. There's no compelling reason. And here I'd just like to share with you a favorite story. You may have heard me tell this story about my guru, who was asked. Actually, there are two stories. No, I'll link them together. First, he was asked, Swamiji, why do you teach? Why do you teach so much? And his answer was simply, because you ask me. So that's the first part. But there's I think a more interesting observation about him. Those of you who have seen him teach in smaller public venues, even larger public venues, he has this interesting trait, a little bit less nowadays, but years ago it used to be much stronger, where he would walk up to the dais, sit down, look at the audience, blink, look at the audience some more, blink some more, then he'd open his mouth, and then he'd close his mouth, blink some more. This would go on sometimes for several minutes before he would begin talking. And when I was a young student, in fact, I remember organizing a program for him in California. These little stories just pop into my head. Sorry, but then I'll have to share them with you. So just to give you some idea of Pujya Swamiji. So in California, with a group of students, I had organized a public program for him. I think 3 days of public lectures. We had really worked hard to make all the arrangements very nice. And he arrives, and we've been worked out with Pujya Swamiji in advance. And I'm walking with him going up towards the stage. I was going to introduce him. And as we're walking up towards the stage, the hall is filled with people. They're all standing as he's coming down the aisle. He turns to me and asks, "What is the topic?" So, which was fine, because that's how he teaches. He teaches in a very spontaneous way. But then after all of that, I give a nice introduction, and he stands up there after I introduce him, blinking for about 5 minutes. And I asked him, why do you pause or hesitate when you're standing up there at the beginning of a class? He gave the most amazing answer, and I still reflect on this to the day. He said, "When I look at the audience," I'll try to reconstruct his exact words. "When I look at the audience, I don't see any problem. I don't see any necessity to teach. I see that everyone is okay exactly as they are. Therefore, I don't feel a compelling need to teach anyone." On the other hand, then he went on to say that, everyone's come and he has a responsibility to teach. So finally the words come and he starts teaching. But he started out by saying, I look at the audience, everyone looks okay to me, he said. I don't see anyone in terrible suffering that's so desperate for Vedanta. They look okay. Everyone looks fine. Everything is fine. That's his vision of fullness and completeness. There's no problem. So, for these reasons, the teacher isn't supposed to teach unless a student asks. Otherwise, it's proselytization. So notice how this story opens. Ashvalayana approaches Bhagavantam Parameshtinam, approaches Brahmaji, Uvacha, and he asks, what does he ask? Adhihi Bhagavan, O Lord, Adhihi, please teach me. And then, teach me what? Sometimes students ask the wrong questions. Sometimes, you've heard this happen too, where some student will come up with some really complicated, obscure situation with regard to karma and make a very complicated question about it, about the complexities of karma, about how one person's karma affects the other person, and how all of our karmas are interrelated, and how do we understand what really is a good karma, what is not a good karma. And a really, really complicated question like that can be created. But it's not a question that goes to the core of the problem. There's a story about Sri Ramana Maharshi. When he was alive, people would come to him with these incredibly complex questions. Great scholars would come to him with these really complicated technical questions. And he had his own way of dealing with these questions. He would often answer very obliquely. Imagine getting this really long technical imagine coming with this really long, complicated question that you're really, really very much engaged with this question. You're dying for an answer. And Sri Ramana Maharshi's response would be, inquire into the one who's asking the question. There you will find your answer. Which is a very clever way of sidestepping a very technical, complicated, and ultimately inconsequential question. Inconsequential in the sense that off the main track, not a question that's going to help address the problem of human suffering, not a question that's going to lead one to spiritual wisdom. So, Ashvalayana is smart enough to approach his teacher, Brahmaji. He's smart enough to ask, but now is he smart enough to ask for the right thing? Well, Adhihi Bhagavan, please teach me, O Master, please teach me what? Brahma Vidyam. Please teach me knowledge of Brahman, Varishtham, which is the highest, which is the most excellent. Please teach me that most excellent knowledge of Brahman. That knowledge which is sada, always, sevyamanaha, always being sevyamanam, always being sought after, sevyamana, resorted to, always being resorted to or sought after, sadbihi, by good people, by saintly people, by spiritual ones. So that most excellent knowledge of Brahman, that's continually, sada, continually sevyamanam, continually being sought after, sadbihi, by saintly people, that knowledge which is nigudham, hidden. Often translated as secret, but somehow our scriptures aren't secret, are they? Aren't they? Haven't they been passed down orally from generation to generation? Aren't they printed now in Sanskrit and translated into many languages? The word secret is not appropriate here. These teachings are not secrets. They're not secrets except in one sense. When we were talking about Bhagavad Gita, we made Sri Krishna use that expression of secret. And we said secret in a very strange way. Secret that it's hidden right in front of your nose. And we don't recognize it. That kind of secret, a secret hidden in plain sight. So that, but really not secret. Nugudham, that which hidden is more the sense. Hidden in the sense that what we seek, and we mentioned this in our study of Isha Upanishad, what we seek is already here, now, present in this very experience. And that seems so against common sense. How can that be that what we're seeking is here now in this ordinary experience? It must be hidden. So nigudham here indeed means hidden. Hidden in this ordinary experience is Brahman. Brahma Vidya then refers to that knowledge of Brahman's truth here and now in this ordinary experience. And this is Ashwalayaна's question. His question continues in the next verse, but clearly he's doing all the right things. Atha, the text begins, so we presume that Ashwalayana himself has the necessary preparation for gaining Brahma Vidya. He has approached a proper teacher, Parameshti, Brahmaji. He has asked, Adhihi Bhagavan, and he has asked a very important question. What is Brahman? He asked for Brahma Vidya. We'll talk more about that. Let's see the remainder of his question in the next verse. He just talking about Brahma Vidya a little further. He says, Yatha chirat sarva papam vyapohya sarva papam vyapo parat param purusham yati vidwan yati tasmai sahovacha pitamahascha Shraddha Bhakti Dhyana Yogaravaihi. Ashwalayana here clarifies his question about Brahma Vidya. Brahma Vidya, which yatha, Brahma Vidya, which is of such a manner that achirat means not after a long time, which is a double negative. Not after a long time means in a short time. quickly, immediately. So immediately, sarva papam vyapohya. Vyapohya, removing sarva papa, removing all sin. Brahma Vidya, according to Ashvalayana, at least Ashvalayana presumes that Brahma Vidya can instantly remove all sin. Now, think about this for a moment. If you understand the doctrine of karma, how do you remove papa karma? And the answer is by going through it, by experiencing the results of it, the consequences of it, by suffering. And there's no other way to exhaust papa karma. This prayashchitta karma, somebody will often say, no, Swamiji, we can remove papa karma through prayashchitta karma. Papa karma, sin. Prayashchitta karma, usually translated expiatory karma. It's like in the legal world, paying a fine. or more negatively, paying bakshish, or paying a bribe. So, prayashchitta karma is nothing like that. It's said that if you commit some papa karma, you should do prayashchitta karma. Absolutely. So prayashchitta karma is a good religious saintly action. It could be a ritual action, could be some donation, it could be some good karma that you do. But bear in mind that prayashchitta karma doesn't erase the effect of papa karma. You may have heard me say before, there's no such thing as a karmic eraser, because the very doctrine of karma says that for every action, there must be a result. That's like step one, the first principle of karma. For every karma, there must be a phala. For a papa karma, there must be an appropriate phala. You can't remove that result. Once you've committed the act, you must bear the consequences. Then we have to ask, then what is the purpose of prayashchitta karma? It doesn't erase the effect of papa karma. What it does, however, is it invokes Bhagavan's blessings. It's good karmas. Good karma is going to have good results, and having good results perhaps could soften the effects of the bad karma. Bad karma means you're going to suffer. Prayashchitta invokes some good karma so that maybe you can suffer more comfortably. You could suffer uncomfortably, you could suffer more comfortably. If you do no prayashchitta karma, you're going to suffer uncomfortably. If you do prayashchitta karma, perhaps you'll suffer with less discomfort, but you're still going to suffer. Every karma must yield its results. Then, how can Ashvalayana say that with Brahma Vidya can lead to the vyapohya, to the removing of sarva papa, of all sin? How can Brahma Vidya possibly remove all sin? And this requires a little bit of an understanding of the doctrine of karma. Since he's asked that, let's just see that very briefly. This is a topic that's generally not well understood at all. So let's take a few moments about this. We say that the enlightened person becomes freed from all sin. How? We better be ready to answer that question. According to the doctrine of karma, how? So first thing we have to understand is, to whom do karma phalas belong? The results of karma belong to whom? The results of karma belong to the one who did the karma. Karma phala belongs to the karma karta. Karta, the doer. The karma karta is the one who owns the good karmas and the bad karmas. Now the tricky Vedantic question is, who exactly is that karma karta? Very Vedantic question. Who does an action? Is it your body that does an action? No. Is it your mind that does an action? Well, wait a minute. That's not right. Just like the body is an instrument, mind is also an instrument. In fact, we call it antakarana. Karana means instrument. This instrument. So your body is an instrument that you use. Your mind is an instrument that you use. So who's using the instrument? That's the karma karta. The one who's using the body as an instrument, the one who's using the mind as an instrument. Who is that one using the body and mind? Here, some people will wrongly think Satchidananda Atma, consciousness. And that's, of course, an error, a blunder, in fact, because consciousness can't do anything. Consciousness reveals whatever is happening in your mind. Consciousness is not an active participant in the functioning of your mind and body. Consciousness is that light of awareness revealing or making known whatever is happening in your mind. So, body is not karma karta. Mind is not karma karta. Consciousness is not karma karta. Who is the one committing these actions? Who is the one that uses the body and mind as instruments to do action? And the answer, in a more technical Vedantic sense, is ahankara, ego. In fact, you say, I did it. Actually, you might say, oh, I didn't do it. The children will say, oh, I didn't do it. Who broke the lamp? I didn't do it. All right, I did it. When you use those words, I did it, who does that I refer to? That I, in the sentence, I did it, that I does not refer to your body, does not refer to your mind, nor does it refer to consciousness. It really refers to you, the individual, your sense of individuality, ahankara. I, in that sentence, refers to that ahankara, sense of individuality, ego, as we usually translate it. So, what have we determined here? Karmas belong to the ego, to the ahankara. Now, we can finish our topic. How does sarva papam vyapoha brahma vidya? How does knowledge remove all papa? In a indirect way. It removes the owner of all papa. Doesn't remove the papa. It removes the ownership of the papa. In one class I gave a metaphor. Bill Gates is the possessor of some tens of billions of dollars. Bill Gates is worth more than many small countries. That's his personal wealth. Now, how can Bill Gates get rid of all his wealth? He's giving it away a little bit at a time, but that's a lot of work. You know that? It's his full-time job. His full-time job is as a philanthropist. He works at it full-time, morning to night, how to give away his money in the most effective way possible. Brilliant, absolutely brilliant, wonderful. But suppose he wanted to get rid of all of his money instantly. There's a very easy way to do that. In fact, it'll happen naturally. When he dies, and I pray he has a long life. So, but when he gives up his life, interesting. When he gives up his life, his money still exists. His wealth still exists. But his ownership of it is gone. In the same way, when one gains enlightenment, you could say that in some technical sense, all the karmas still exist in a technical sense, but your ownership of all the karmas ceases to exist, so the relationship between a non-existent person and karma, What kind of relationship is that? It's a non-existent relationship. So in this way, sarva papam vyapohya. In this way, one becomes freed from all papa due to Brahma Vidya, Parat Param Purusham. And the Purusha, the being, who is Parat Param, beyond the beyond. Parat Param, beyond everything. Beyond words, beyond mind, beyond thoughts. That Purusham, that being, Yati, one reaches. Who reaches? Vidwan, the enlightened one. The one who has gained Brahma Vidya. The one who has gained Brahma Vidya reaches that being who's transcendent, beyond mind, beyond thoughts. And with that knowledge having destroyed ego, ahankara, destroys ownership of karma, therefore sarva papam vyapohya. Now, we're going to stop here before we get into the real teaching, which the teaching starts in the very next verse. And when we meet next time, we'll introduce the teaching with a very important question. We just saw Parat Param Purusham, that being that's beyond everything, beyond mind, beyond words, beyond thoughts. How do you teach Brahma Vidya? How do you teach that which is beyond words? And when we meet next week, we'll be using words. We have no choice. We'll be using words to pursue that which is beyond words. We'll be using thoughts to pursue that which is beyond thoughts, that which is transcendent. How does that work? How can that work? We have to establish that, and then we'll see Brahmaji's instruction to Ashvalayana in the next class. All right, we'll conclude here with our prayers. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinaha Sarve Santu Niramayaha Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschid Dukkha Bhag Bhavet Asato Ma Satgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritangamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Tat Sat.